Howdy folks, I'm Ben Starr, the ultimate food geek. Welcome back to my messy kitchen, and I'm here today with my dear friends Chip and Jenni Ferris, who are assisting me with some holiday cocktailing and holiday baking. Baking tends to be one of Chip's strongest suits. I was waiting for that.
I think drinking cocktails. Quite good at that.
So we are basically making him do all of the baking work today, and we have come to one of the most hated and abhorred of all holiday confections, the fruitcake.
Love it.
Just shows what poor taste he has even more. Fruitcake is nasty, y'all. It is disgusting.
Nasty.
It is dense.
It's a brick.
And full of that weird, clear, candied fruit that's not even fruit. I mean, what are clear green cherries?
I don't know a country they come from, but they're delicious.
They're nasty, okay? Fruitcake is nasty. So, in an attempt to redeem what should be at least an edible holiday treat, I have created a recipe that is a delicious gingery, sort of gingerbread cake with lovely dried fruit steeped in alcohol and rehydrated so it absorbs all of that nice yummy booze, and it forms a cake that is a lot lighter and more flavorful than fruitcake, and it's really, really delicious. So, we're going to make Chip make it for us today.
Wonderful.
Yay.
In this pot, I have 1 pound of dried fruit, and the mix that I like to use, and you can change this up if you like, based on your own desires. I've got golden raisins, dried cranberries, dried tart cherries, and figs. And by the way, this is a really good break here. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex and you don't know Winco Foods, you have to go to Winco Foods. They have locations all around the place. Y'all's closest one, I think, is off of George Bush and Josie or something like that.
Okay.
But their bulk section is extraordinary. It's like going to a central market with dollar store prices.
Oh.
Right? So they have an incredible bulk section where you can get spices, dried fruits, nuts, everything for way cheaper than you could find it anywhere else. And a lot of the ingredients in this recipe, I mean, you'll save yourself $20 by going to Winco over Central Market or Whole Foods.
And this segment sponsored by Winco Foods.
Conveniently. No. but they are actually a really, really, really wonderful resource. So, I have got 4 ounces of each of these dried fruits. I did cut the figs up into smaller portions because they're about, that big once they're dried. But a lot of people really love dates. To me, they're just too cloyingly sweet, so I can't use dates in a fruitcake, but that's a traditional ingredient. So, Chip, I'm going to call upon you to do the rest of the weighing in addition of the ingredients. And, of course, we've got our scale here. We've already talked about it. If you don't own a kitchen scale, you better get one because it makes your life much, much, much easier. So the first thing that we're going to do is add 3.7 ounces of bleach.
Oh, wonderful.
Bleach.
So are we trying to cure COVID?
This is...
Sorry.
Am I allowed to edit that in?
Yes.
This is molasses. I do so much holiday baking that I buy molasses by the gallon. It's actually a lot cheaper when you try to buy a little jar of molasses at the grocery store. It's like $6 or $7.
Yeah, at least.
This whole thing is 20 and it's a gallon. So I buy mine by the gallon.
And it lasts until 2024.
And it lasts forever, yes. Okay, so if you will weigh out 3.7 ounces of that molasses, that's about half a cup for those of you that are measuring at home. That's 3.6, that's good enough. All right, a tablespoon of instant coffee, which I've already pre-measured for you, so you can just add that right in. And 2 sticks of butter. I'm gonna go ahead and set these down on the induction burner and get that going.
Wow.
And then we wanna measure 1 cup of booze. Oh, that's so high-pitched. Induction burners work via electromagnetism, so they make all sorts of weird sounds. Today we're going to use bourbon because I know that's your favorite, but you can literally use any type of booze that exists, whether it is aged or not. Rum is very, very popular with this. Bourbons, cognacs, armagnacs. If you're looking for a little bit less of an alcohol content, you can use red wine, you can use dessert wines or port. Marsala, anything like that. And then if you're excellent.
He's cooking.
And if you're an alcohol-free household, you can just use grape juice, apple juice, any kind of juice like that. Cranberry juice will be fine. Or you can just use water, but that's boring.
Apple cider?
Yes. Apple cider? Totally.
That would be really delicious.
Yeah. All right. So basically, what we want to do is bring this to a simmer. Simmer it nice and slow for about 5 minutes, and then turn it off. And then you let it cool down. For our intents and purposes today, I'm going to chill it super fast in a water bath. But you want to let it cool for at least an hour on your countertop. You can also do this the day before you plan to bake. Leave it overnight, but leave it covered. But you want this to be about room temperature before you proceed with the rest of the recipe.
Wonderful.
So our fruit mixture has cooled fully, and it's time to proceed. So the next thing you're going to do is crack 2 eggs right into the...
Into it?
Right into it. There. That's wonderful.
Just a little shell.
That's fine.
It just makes it look crunchy.
Yeah.
They're nuts. No one.
You won't distinguish it from the hazelnuts anyway.
There you go.
There we go.
Excellent.
Way to go, Chipper.
Now, half a cup of sugar. And normally I weigh my ingredients, but because we're also doing buttermilk and it's half a cup of both, I'm just going to use a dry measuring cup. Half a cup of sugar.
This is sugar, right?
This is sugar. And then we're going to do half a cup of buttermilk. And normally you would measure that in a liquid measuring cup. But again, this particular recipe is not as demanding for precision as others. So just make sure you fill it up to the rim and then scrape it out with the spatula. Now, you can use milk if you don't have buttermilk in your fridge. But if you don't have buttermilk in your fridge, you gotta have buttermilk in your fridge.
I don't.
Buttermilk lasts far beyond the expiration
You're
date.
assholes.
It's just like yogurt, it is already fermented. You can keep buttermilk for months beyond the expiration
Can
date.
you freeze it?
No, don't freeze it
Okay,
because it
just
separates after
checking.
you do that. But you can make more buttermilk when you get low on buttermilk by simply refilling the jug with milk and letting it sit out on the countertop for a day or two. Whatever you like. Typical buttermilk is made with low-fat milk. But you can, if you want to make a full-fat buttermilk, you can refill it with full-fat whole milk.
Like with skim milk?
You can also do it with skim milk. There is skim milk buttermilk.
2% would be
2% is typically what's
ideal.
used to make buttermilk. I like to do mine with whole milk because it's a bit richer.
Yes.
And it's easy to find like pasture-raised, grass-fed organic milk,
yes.
but you cannot find pastured organic buttermilk very easily. And if you can, it's like $20,000 a quart, right? So
That's a
this
lot.
is a way for you to perpetuate your buttermilk, but with a high-quality organic grass-fed milk.
So
right?
when it gets how far down in the half gallon would you add?
Almost all the way down.
And then you just add milk.
Add milk to it, shake it up really good, leave it on the countertop until it thickens. Sometimes that takes 24 hours, sometimes it takes 48 hours or more, depends on the temperature of your kitchen. Then you have fresh buttermilk, shake it up, put it in the fridge, and it's good for months after that.
You are just a wealth of information.
Buttermilk is a really important ingredient because it's acidic, and so it softens your baked goods.
Yes.
It cuts through the gluten structure that develops with the flour, and so it makes tender, flavorful, brightly flavored dishes because it's got that nice lactic acid and acetic acid in there from the activity of the bacterial culture that ferments the milk. So use buttermilk, keep buttermilk in your fridge, use it. But if you don't, milk will work in this recipe, it just won't be as good. All right, next ingredient we want to add is a couple of teaspoons of vanilla. And here is a teaspoon.
He doesn't eyeball well.
Hey, before we go on, obscure Weird Al Yankovic reference, but where'd you get this great spatula?
Spatula City.
Oh, yeah, for all your spatula needs. Spatula
They sell
City.
spatulas.
And that's all.
Clueless. Don't have a clue.
Libby knows.
You're welcome, all of you people out there that love Weird Al. 1. 2.
Excellent, that's right.
All right.
Now we want the zest of an orange and a lemon. So here we've got our microplane.
Yep.
And orange and lemon, so get some of the zest off of those. Be careful
One
not
or the
to
other
zest
first,
your
or does it
skin.
matter?
Either one is totally fine.
Oh, yes, so not shaving down my finger. That
Yes,
would
excellent. Now, for those of you that don't have a microplane, you can use your regular box grater, just the small hole cider. If you've got little graters like this, just the small graters are
Make sure
perfectly
you
fine.
stay in the.
Now, a tip, if your recipe calls for citrus zest, when you're shopping for citrus, get one that has a firmer, harder rind on the outside of it. The riper they get, the smoother that rind gets, and it's hard to zest them off. But you tend to get more juice out of a softer rinded citrus. So, you know, if you're looking for juice, buy the softer ones that squish easily, but if you're looking for rind, buy
Yeah,
the ones that
plenty
are
to go,
harder.
honey.
That's good enough.
All right.
And then the final ingredient is about 3 ounces or, you know, almost a full cup of toasted chopped nuts. That is optional. I actually do not like nuts in baked goods, brownies, cookies.
No,
Nuts
I don't
kind
either.
of freak me
No.
out because they get a little
But
soggy.
this is different. This is different.
Yeah.
Half a cup?
No, the whole
No,
thing.
just
I've already
one.
pre-weighed it for you.
Well, that's so nice. of
Now, you can use any kind of nut, walnuts, pecans, almonds. These are hazelnuts, and you should use them toasted because the more you toast them, the more they will retain their crunch after they are baked. The worst thing, the reason I don't like nuts in baked goods is because they become soggy, and like the texture of a soggy nut is literally the worst thing on the planet.
Really?
Right? So to toast your nuts easiest, you do it in the microwave, right? You put them in a bowl in 1 minute increments until they become nice and fragrant and sizzly. Toss them or stir them after every 1 minute increment, and then you've got toasted nuts. Let them cool fully, crack them up with a little hammer or something like that, and rolling pin, and then they go into the mix.
Thank you very much.
We've lost Jenny. All right, you've got your liquid ingredients. Now we are going to prepare our dry ingredients. So the first thing you want to do is measure out your flour. We're going to do 8 ounces of flour. That's about 1 2/3 of a cup if you're measuring by volume. But again, it is so much easier and faster to just measure with a scale. Next, a teaspoon of baking powder. Not baking soda, they are very different.
Yes, they are.
1.
It has a scraper for you.
And look, I already knew that.
Now we're going to do
God
a
bless us,
teaspoon
everyone.
of kosher salt. If you're using table salt, which is finer, you'll use half a teaspoon. Okay, now it's time for our spices. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of ginger. Now most of my recipes call for a lot more spices than this. But in this particular case, I like for the cake to be only mildly
afraid.
spiced and not
Be
just
very
as aggressive as
So
I normally are. And a teaspoon of cardamom. Now we're going to do about half a teaspoon of ground cloves. Freshly grated nutmeg, also about half a teaspoon. So you can just start using the microplane again.
I'm so excited about the microphone.
This is the best. No, yeah. Yeah. Watch your fingers.
All right, that's great. So go ahead and stir that around. Now I do all stirring of my dry ingredients with my fingers, but you can certainly use the spatula to get that nice and stirred around.
Oh, aren't you?
All right, now you can pour that into the wet ingredients.
All at one time.
All at one time.
And then just,
Or miss.
and then just
Or you could miss.
fold it in.
And now we're going to fold it in. Do you know how to fold it in?
You just fold it in.
Look at him,
He's
he's
folding.
doing it! He's doing it!
You're folding it.
I can make this last as long as you want or as short as you want.
Now, again, anytime you are working with flour, when it becomes moistened or hydrated, the more you stir it or work it, the more you develop the gluten structure, which can make things tough. So, you always want to treat it gently, and you only want to stir enough until the flour has all disappeared into the full liquid matrix of the batter. Now, there are multiple ways to bake this cake. I bake it in a deep 8-inch cake pan. If you have a regular 9-inch cake pan, that's just a regular height, that's also perfectly fine. Also, a lot of people like to do this as gifts, so if you have the little mini loaf pans, you can also do that. The important thing that you need to do, though, is to line whatever the pan you are baking in, is to line it with parchment or wax paper. Parchment's a little bit better and easier to use, but that really does not want to come out of there. There we go. Now, because I bake a lot as a chef, I already have like pre-cut parchment circles in a variety of sizes. But I'm going to show you an easy trick on how to make your own perfectly sized parchment round if you just have a roll of parchment paper. So just take yourself a nice parchment round just like this, fold it in half. Okay, so once you got it folded in half, you're going to fold it in half again. This is like making a snowflake. Do you ever make snowflakes as a kid?
Or a paper airplane.
Or a paper airplane. Fold it in half again,
Definitely paper.
and then fold it in half again. And now you're going to take your pan upside down, put the point of the paper in the very center of the pan, take your scissors like this, and then just kind of cut in a little circle about the width of the pan. Then you can open that up, and you have a nice parchment circle that can go in the bottom of your pan, right? Okay. You also want to make sure that you grease the pan either with cooking spray, you can smear some butter in there if you like, and then the parchment goes in the bottom. This will make sure you can get the cake out in one piece, right? Even if you're doing the little loaf pans, I highly recommend that you line the bottom with parchment. You can always cut around the edge, but you can't get in there under the bottom if it's stuck there. So use that parchment, wax paper if it's the only thing you've got. Very, very, very important. Batter goes into the prepared pan. Excellent.
Good enough?
Now, that's good enough. Now you want to press all of that down in to make sure we don't have any giant air bubbles. So
With?
kind of get it with your spatula. So get that just kind of evenly pressed down in the bottom. And then, of course, just smooth the top out so it's nice and even all the way around. Okay, excellent. Now we have our oven preheated to 320 degrees Fahrenheit with the rack in the center of the oven. We're going to bake an 8 or 9 inch cake like this for about 75 minutes, hour and 15 minutes before we check it. But if you're baking them in smaller loaf pans, you might want to check after 45 minutes or so just to make sure.
Wonderful.
Into the oven it goes.
Thanks.
All right. Our fruit cake has been baking hour and 15 minutes. It looks lovely. Gently pressing on the top of it, it springs right back. It doesn't give. That's how we know that it's done. You can also do a test with a toothpick. Stick that toothpick in there, pull it out.
Nailed it.
Came out clean. Nailed it. Very good. Now, you want to let it cool fully in the pan because it's very delicate. We don't want to try to take it out of the pan right now. So we're going to let it sit there for an hour or two, run a knife around the edge, and then you can just invert the pan into your hand, invert the cake into your outstretched hand, and then back onto a cooling rack. Here's the deal. You want to let it sit for 24 hours before you eat it. That lets all the moisture in the fruit migrate out into the cake itself and equalize the moisture. But lucky for you, I baked one yesterday, so you can taste it.
I feel shocked.
And here it is. We may have eaten a little bit of it already. But go ahead and dig in. And you'll notice I have warmed this up. I really do love this cake warmed for 20 or 30 seconds in the microwave.
I noticed the cherries are not green.
They are not green.
Not glowing.
Oh my god.
Isn't that nice?
It's delicious.
It's moist, but not like dense and chewy like a nasty, gross fruit cake.
Just the fruit is chewy.
Just the fruit
Still
is
not
chewy.
going to let go of it. I like the legacy fruitcake, but this is better.
I'm sorry.
We will forgive you for that.
Will we?
You can either be beautiful or smart, and you're beautiful.
Oh, wait a minute.
That is delicious.
We like to eat this warmed up for breakfast, and what I'll do is take some non-fat Greek yogurt and sweeten it with like a little stevia and put some vanilla in there, so it's relatively guilt-free, not quite like cream cheese frosting. Put that on top, and it gives you a nice, creamy, kind of indulgent sort of a feel without all the extra calories and saturated fat. Nice little tip.
Perfect.
All right,
Delicious.
so fruit cake that doesn't suck. There you have it.
God.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Cheers.